something cool about the desert.
It is a trippy place.
The obvious big sky, vast amounts of space.
Sounds cheesy, but you soak it up. And you know, and I think that it comes through in the music. It really does.
If you live in the middle of the city, there's places people go where no one's around. Whereas in the desert, you know, I just had to go like 2 streets over and I was looking at basically a horizon and I wouldn't see a pavement, a building or a power pole. I mean, it was like on the edge of infinity there, you know?
I was like, fuck this, man. There's nothing out here and it's way too far away from everything, you know, because it was literally still, you know, not built yet. Coachella Valley, this is our desert. This is the whole thing. 10 East, right there, boom. Highway 111, Palm Springs, yeah, coming right into town. This is where we are. Cathedral City, Rancho Mirage. That's all of Palm Springs, like in the 30s. Very little, right? My great-grandfather had a cactus garden right there. He came to the desert in the early 1900s and homesteaded, pioneering white family, and took this thing around finding water. So my grandma and my great-uncle were the first white people born in Palm Springs, which sounds insane, but it was just Indians. There was no kind of weird second-class thing happening. They were poor white people and they were poor Indians. This is my favorite back route right here. This is the last little neighborhood, little zone. Yeah, these to be my family's trailer park. Now it's a Motel 6.
Solo she rose up like the sun, up like the sun, up like the sun. Solo she rose up like
Best neighborhood in Palm Springs right here. For as uptight as, you know, America might be, you've got your leather gay shop right there with all the, you know, paddles and ball gags and locks and chambers. And you got killer Mexican restaurant. And you got the tool shed, leather boy gay bar. And then you got all nude girls across the street. And you've got legalized marijuana, big right there too. So this is very, it's a perfect little neighborhood. It's, you know, weed, drugs, girls, boys, and good Mexican food.
The desert's great. I appreciate it more now that I'm 7 hours away from it.
Lucifer's here, he sleeps in the rear. Can't understand him, man, it's all that I hear.
So there's things I miss about it. It's nice to come back.
We're setting the stuff up, everybody's gonna have a good time. It's not as hot as people thought, so everything seems good.
That's how it goes. Try to make a nice show for the people. Have some fun. Venues down in the desert now. There's a couple bars that do music every weekend, and so it's people aren't as desperate for that kind of stuff as they used to be when I was growing up down there.
Boredom.
Growing up, obviously, you do whatever you do. You go out and it's too hot, you try to entertain yourself. Maybe as a kid you play sports, or we like to skateboard when we were young. Then you hit puberty and you start to party and chase girls. Everybody dates each other's girlfriends because it's such a small town.
We're waiting for the scum bus for like a half hour in my Chuck Taylors, and the sidewalk being so hot that it actually was starting to melt and loosen up the bottom of my shoes. hard to be cool. It's hard to be a punk in the desert. All that shit that you put on to be punk, like mascara and hairspray, it just starts melting and it burns your eyes.
Palm Springs, where I live, it's a resort town. Just the poor people stayed in the summer, and rich people came here to bourgeois in the winter.
But that's about it. It's where old people go to retire and play golf.
Nothing to do. Unless you golf, which I don't.
Sonny Bono, Frank Sinatra, and other interments of interest. Number 151. Great show at the Graveyard in Palm Springs. The singer for a band that I was in then, the band was called Cloudy Days. His parents were the caretakers and they went away. Sinatra was alive then, now Sinatra's dead and he's buried here.
Crappy hotel.
You'd see Dean Martin. You'd see weird people like movie stars, and then you think about that generation and what they must have thought of us.
Palm Springs at that time was dominated by Frank Sinatra and his Rat Pack culture.
I've been here before.
He lived in Rancho Mirage, which is just outside of Palm Springs.
It was far enough away from their wives that they could feel like they were in another state, come here and get laid. Bring their girlfriends out here, get drunk, shoot guns, play golf. It was like you're in another world.
The whole scene was around these little lounges where Frank Sinatra type of musicians would sing New York, New York. So there grew up to be this ring-a-ding-ding type of swing culture that really hated rock and roll because Frank Sinatra hated rock and roll. So they basically banned rock and roll in the 1970s. There was no concerts at all, the mid-1980s.
Great voice, mafia connections.
But you can't stop rock music from developing. You can't stop kids from practicing their favorite art form. So this underground scene developed, basically.
To be honest, it never really got bigger than it was always the same size. It was always somewhere between 200 and 600 people. And you knew 450 of them.
When punk rock was happening in Los Angeles, it naturally pervaded the Coachella Valley also. There was a band called Target 13 that was very influential.
The theme song to Rodney on the Rock was written by Target 13.
The leader of that group had a skateboard shop in downtown Palm Springs. And so he was kind of a meeting place for a lot of the punkers.
Mike Bates, he was the only punk rocker in high school, and he was the only one that was old enough to have a car that would take you to a punk rock show in LA.
Those guys were all doing the same thing, but not so much generator parties, but they said it for us, you know?
Desert rock sound and stoner rock, I'm 47 years old. What was in my record collection growing up? It was hard rock.
Blue Cheer, Slade, Black Sabbath, of course, the most underrated AC/DC album that Bon Scott didn't sing on, Cactus.
My family influence was Jackson Browne, The Doors, Hendrix, and a lot of blues stuff. Just a smattering of blues, Chuck Berry.
And then to punk.
Okay. All Iggy, Stooges. I forgot to mention the Ramones and my influences. They're number one.
The Misfits and Black Flag and GBH and Exploited.
G.G. Allen, of course. Butthole Surfers, this album changed my life. GBH.
I knew when I heard it that was where I belonged.
Cross record.
I think the desert scene does, even though it doesn't sound like punk rock, I think it does come back to those same sensibilities. Punk rock's like one of the few kinds of music that there's no necessity for any kind of technical knowledge when you do it.
If you had an amp and a guitar, you could play in a band. It didn't matter if you knew how to play or not. Dude, you got gear, let's jam, and we'd make noise.
It's just as much like a performance art as it is proper music in a way. It's just pure expression, short and simple and straight up, and no fluff.
It's kind of like Florida too, where you get all these old rich people that come here to die. And some are cool and some suck and make it hard on the youth.
Nothing against old people. They're cool, they're just older, but when we were kids, it felt like it was us against them. They didn't like us having parties, that's why we couldn't do it in our neighborhoods.
They don't want purple-haired kids running around, you know, looking like freaks and doing their thing.
I had no trouble with the law ever. They had trouble with me. Riding on my belly on Palm Canyon on this big old skateboard, you know, and I look over and the two cops are in this undercover car. And these two guys are looking at me, I'm just like, I'm jamming, man. I'm jamming. And they were laughing. And they pulled right from me. Mom. And fucking smash me.
When you tried to do things like skateboard and stuff, the police would take your skateboard and roll over it with their squad car and destroy it.
Get at someone's house and just play until the cops showed up. And we would get busted within like the first 2 songs.
Played like garage parties in fucking in Mayfair, and you know, like hoods.
There were no rock clubs, so we tried to play the dance clubs.
People are gonna go, "Are you gonna behave?" And I'm like, "Fuck no." You know, right. I mean, what? When I'm having a good time, you're getting mad. I understand that.
People start slam dancing, and the big beefcake security guys would actually start macing the crowd. And then all of a sudden you got girls crying, dudes throwing up, and the cops showing up. There's a new place called The Hood. They're all the same. It's like a sports bar, and it'll open up, have punk rock shows for a while, and then they're done.
Yeah, the Hood's not like ideal, but it's what the desert has, and you know, if you live in the desert, you can't be picky about some of that shit. So you're playing in your mom's garage for so long, you want to play out. So with Solar Feast, our first show, we borrowed a generator, and we just set up and played a parking lot downtown. Suddenly, like 100 kids and people were like jumping over a fence to come see us play.
And this is the library. This is where I work. In the summer especially, it's a good place to work. It's better than roofing.
He hires, you know, scumbag rock and rollers to help him out. I worked for him a couple times.
Yeah, that's a selling point for Murphy Bids.
At 16, the desert meant nothing more to me than a dead-end, boring place full of old people. I can appreciate it a little more now that I'm pushing 47, as opposed to when I was 16.
Through skateboarding, got turned on to some guys from Palm Springs. We had a punk band called Dead Issue. Scott Reeder on bass, me, Alfredo, and Herb on guitar and vocals.
When I was living at my mommy's house, Herb was living out of a car, you know. The guy's like punk rock and he's been around forever.
You ever seen Scott play bass? He's got to be one of the rockinest bass players in the world. It's fucking insane. He's so goddamn good, it's almost bizarre.
I met Alfredo one night at a Target 13 show.
I'd walk up to a party and I could tell it was Alfredo playing drums from like 5 blocks away. I didn't know what band it was, I didn't know what song they were playing, but I could tell from the style of drumming that it was Fredo.
You know, it's hard for a drummer to have a style. And the difference between and instantly you're in a lowrider.
At the time, he was playing with Sean Wheeler in a band called Mutual Hatred.
Mutual Hatred, which was my first punk band. Look at that, the Cramps at the Whiskey A Go-Go. That's like 1980 or something. So we made this. This was the first set list from the first show at Alex Fernandez's house. Petroleum Jelly. Oh yeah, that's about masturbation. Dude, Greenpeace Sucks. This is Alfredo on drums, right? Me, 15. Kill the whale, watch him die, ignite his blubber and make him fry. Dun, dun, dun. Greenpeace sucks. Greenpeace sucks. Turtle meat, I love to eat, I thrash and beat for turtle meat. Dun, dun, dun. Greenpeace sucks. Greenpeace sucks. Kill the seal, take his pelt, chop it up into a kilt. Greenpeace sucks. Greenpeace sucks. Greenpeace sucks. Greenpeace sucks. It's like probably 40 seconds long, you know what I mean? Like, kids are so dumb, you know? Like, we thought that would be punk, right? To say, just bum people out.
Sean Wheeler is one of my heroes. He's in a band now called Throw Rag. He used to have a band when I was a kid called Zizo Zed Zadfrak and the Dune Buggy Attack Battalion.
Zizo ZZ Zadfrak and the Dune Buggy Attack Battalion, which was pretty much like Zodiac Mind Warp, but weirder.
This is the band Zizo ZC Zadfrak and the Dune Buggy Attack Battalion. This is me, my nice long hair, and my fur vest and everything. See, Zizo's whole thing was like Mad Max and the Manson family, and then Dune Buggies, and they were out in Death Valley. When Josh and Nick and those guys were kids, they seen us play, and they always tell me, Wheeler, man, do you remember that time that you had that band and you played with whoever, man, over at Adrian's, man? Wow, wow. So that was the whole thing. Yeah, Fur, Mad Max, Dune Buggies, Charles Manson. Like, come on, man. There's nothing cool about Charles Manson, you know what I mean? You know, I guess it's the fantasy of hopeless thought and all that. What is this? Dig?
It's hard to jam when you're a punk band. You can make a bunch of noise and go through the same 4 chords over and over again. Once you discover that, then it's like, whoa, there's way more going on here than just high energy. You know, there's so much more to music than that.
Wake up tomorrow too late.
We converted the garage into a jam room and we just played music every day. Scott had taken off to play with Wino and The Obsessed. And then Jerry came and lived with us. And that's how that whole thing started with Yawning.
Gary's a classic desert guy, you know? Someone who is not a follower.
He just put on the guitar and mess with it with his thumb. And it started to sound kind of cool.
Gary's this handsome Mexican dude, and together with Boomer and Larry and Fredo, it painted such a strange picture of a band. The thing is that the music sounds nothing alike, but that's the point. It's such a strange juxtaposition of different schools of playing.
It wasn't so much about creating this really interesting thing to listen to as it was about how enjoyable it was to play and just flow. And
Mario is the one guy that I've always thought, you know, deserved most of the credit for everything. Boomer had something special down to his song titles. This song's called Three-Legged Table, and I would be like, wow, that's fucking good. He was always a few years ahead of his time. When grunge got big, and initially I was like, Mario's been doing something down this road for 5 years, you know, before this, you know, and he ain't asking for nothing.
He's always been humble. He would always put his band lower. Mario's that kind of human, man. He's not. But who plays guitar like Mario, man? Nobody. You know what I mean? Fuck. 500 times in a row.
Watching guys like Boomer when I was 12, 13 years old, and I remember thinking that Boomer was unheckleable. There was no way you could say, "You suck." He meant it so much. And I remember thinking that's what I want to be, is unheckleable. At the time, Boomer was a really big guy, you know? And his cousin Larry, like a stick skinny, and they're the same height. So they were just this beautiful odd couple.
Good pussy for my man, Boomer. Comes with those you trust. You miss the flashing signs, but you she's way too fine. Good pussy like heroin, you better off with that cheap wine. She gonna steal your heart, she gonna rot your mind. She gonna make it hard, brother, for you to do that time. I told you more than once, told you more than twice. Fool's game, you got better odds with dice. Now you're running high, got your back against the wall. Good pussy on a mountaintop, but now it's time to fall. She gonna steal your heart, she gonna rot your mind. She gonna make it hard, brother, for you to do that time. There really ain't no rainbows falling down on gold. Good pussy's the devil's tail, don't say you ain't been told. Good pussy is the devil's tail, don't say you ain't been told. I know it don't add up, count it back from 9. Good pussy like heroin, you better off with that cheap wine. Good pussy like heroin, you better off with that cheap wine. A good pussy like heroin, you better off with that cheap wine.
At that time, punk in the desert was allowed for a huge span of music. There were a lot less formal ways to dress, a lot less formal ways to play than the word punk implies now. It was a very open scene, and there were varieties of styles within individual bands.
There wasn't a particular desert look or a specific desert sound. All the bands were very unique and had their own individuality.
In LA, if you went to a punk show, there'd probably be punk rockers. In the desert, you're just gonna go to a party and whatever band's playing, everyone's gonna be there, whether it's the football players from high school, It doesn't matter who, it's just a party. The party's first and, the format second. Just it's a gathering of people that are bored and want to go somewhere and drink beer and get laid.
No matter where you are, okay, yeah, God, it's enough. Climbing so far, just to make a friend. No matter where you are, we just think we need all that.
You put these bands together, they break up, but they reform into something else.
We've been in bands together. We've been seeing each other's bands forever.
We've been in the same band, but at different times when we weren't playing with each other.
Yeah. And us too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. That's kind of how it works in the desert.
Somos PET, 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 a bailar. Somos PET, 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 a bailar. PET, a bailar. Somos PET, 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 a bailar. Somos PET, 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 a bailar. Somos PET, PET, PET.
What? Punk sucks. Punk pussies, faggots, Sabbath motherfucker, Ozzy.
The punkers didn't like the rock metalheads.
Van Halen, motherfucker. And I was like, fuck you, man.
There's like the jammy, Grateful Dead cliques, and then there's the fucking thrash, heavy metal clique. Because we had long hair and our fucking Nikes and we were metaled out.
There was a point in school where all the punkers were pushed out and all the rocker guys were beating us up.
Hey everyone, look at me.
All those stoners, they were the enemy. Those were the kids we were fighting when we were punk rockers. They weren't us yet, but we became the same thing that was our enemy.
There's a sense of community and respect for other musicians, and also that, I would say, like a kind of an intense sense of competition that you might have with your brothers and sisters in a way. There's like some shit talking. When Kyuss was starting, all you got was a lot of talk of like, fucking Kyuss is just trying to be Yawning, man.
But if you sounded like someone else, you got worse than made fun of. You got nothing from anybody.
And then Kyuss had done so well that there was almost the sense that anybody else that was making loud music and doing well was just trying to fucking be Kyuss. It's a little bit of that small town thing that happens.
I loved my friends, but I was glad to get away from them. I was glad to move to a different town and have a different life at the time. I wanted to be near the water. And it's not because I surf, it's not because I go fishing, it's because it's not the desert.
I visited San Francisco with Nick, and I fell in love with the place.
Oh, look, Mike. What did you say about Elmer Gantry? Yeah.
I need to go out of my house, have an aperitif and then some coffee, have someone spit at me and walk on human shit, and have shows every night.
Couple crackers.
Try to sell me crack. I like that.
It's like a phone contract. Metro Promise for Yo Daddy.
Is that Yo Daddy of Bayview or Yo Daddy of
Mission
Excelsior?
Street?
Mission.
Yeah, 1288 Mission Street.
Okay. I know a few Yo Daddies. But there's more variety, you know. You want I don't know. You want a female dwarf to piss in your face. It's easier to find in San Francisco.
San Francisco is probably the best choice of places to move to from the desert. We could have moved to LA, but LA seems kind of lame.
LA was much worse than it is now. Like in the late 80s, and it was like Sunset Strip glam rock bullshit. And yeah, I don't think bands in the desert would want to come and be part of that.
It's LA, you know, I mean, it's a big metropolis.
You grew up hating Los Angeles, like LA, lots of people.
It's just too many people.
We lived in Los Angeles for about 5 years. To finally have this, it's like living in slow motion. Can make a lot of noise. I can't imagine moving back to the city.
That's just going to be in those mellow parts.
I went to high school with Zach and Erica, and when they wanted to work here, I was thrilled, you know, old friends. They brought in Mario Lawley and Sean Wheeler and Joe Dillon, all these old friends from the high school days, the early punk days. It was awesome. I love Dolly's Llama. Zach is amazing. He's a great songwriter.
Making change for people. They give me bigger bills and I break them into smaller bills. 11:45 to 8 in the morning, rock and roll hours. And then clean the booth. mop the jizz out of the booths. And Mike works there too. He's working tomorrow morning. He's doing the janitor shift. He'll be mopping jizz tomorrow morning. That was a lot of fun. Full moon, see him play, drinking beer, kicking back. When Fatso Jetson was playing, I was on top of your band. That was awesome. That was like the old days.
Well, it's not as cool as playing out in the middle of the desert with a generator.
Yeah.
Itchy brother's gone away. 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 Itchy brother's gone away.
All right, thank you guys.
felt stuck here, really. I still feel like that sometimes. It's not a bad place to be now that I've opened my eyes.
This hill we're on is called Edom Hill. Really, a lot of people come up here and party and shoot and drink and hang out. He's dead, but this is the rare Coachella Valley monkey that come up from Mexico. Looks pretty good for being dead, huh?
The desert and blow shit up. You can fucking shoot guns, explode things, ride motorcycles, and you can play music.
There's a guy named Stuart Sweezy who did a thing called Desolation Center. He did 2 generator parties. The first one was with the Minutemen and Östersende Neubauten from Germany. The second one was with Red Cross, Meat Puppets, and a band called Sonic Youth. I met Mario and Scott and Alfredo, and they suggested do the generator show in the desert. So Mario and Larry bought their own generator and did it by themselves.
On music talent alone, Mario deserves an awful lot of credit, but also for doing it and providing things like that for the scene.
This would be a great place for a generator party. Relatively close to the cities, and it's got one entrance, and it's just surrounded by these huge canyons. It's like a big bowl. And then over here is this little cave, like canyon, where it'd be great for the stage and stuff. I think the sound would really just stay in here. This is the entrance, so you have the band right here. You could actually put the generator back far enough where you wouldn't hear it.
When I was across the river, set up our gear and basically practice outside and just jam.
At night, there's a lot of, it's really clear, you can see the stars, and you just feel like you're just floating around on a rock.
What we did in the desert with the generator is set up and play. And maybe it was shit, but maybe it was fucking amazing too.
There were a lot of jam sections where you really didn't know exactly where it was going to go. It's going to be the most amazing feeling, or you're going to fall flat on your face, and it's scary when you get to that place.
just insane with energy, and the people were so excited by the music. It was something that you didn't see in LA. You could have someone improvising on an instrument you didn't expect, someone singing crazy like, you know, in a Diamante Galas style or something, and it was all whatever.
As real an entertainment as like the Colosseum was in Rome at the time.
A friend of mine said, this is not a rock show, this is a tribal ritual, you know, and I think there's a naked guy running around and just people boiling with energy and excitement, and they were so into the music. We'd never seen the desert scene before, you know. We had no idea what was going on, and just we could see there was something really special going on there.
It needed to be almost like excessively whatever style it was in order to function outside. If you're going to be heavy, you had to be real heavy. Everyone had four-wheel drives, and you'd drive by police that were buried in the sand, trying to stop you to get you to help dig them out, and you just roost them and drive past them. And
There's a party out. Where's the party? Like it was all like word of mouth, and there was a certain spots that you knew where it would be.
It'd be the middle of summer, and me or one of my friends or someone would go, hey, there's a light up on the hill at the Nude Bowl. Let's go. And we'd go round up our friends, be up there within about 20 minutes.
Nude Bowl was an actual nudist colony, and you know, it just went defunct and fell apart. Beautiful pool to skateboard, set up generators, shoot guns, camp, do whatever you want, free for all.
the walls were up, there was no roof. People are hanging in the windows and on top of the walls like monkeys, and it was just beautiful.
I would actually spend my days there too, skateboarding. And then I got a microphone in my hand.
It's about 20 years too late, but they finally built a park out here. They built a Nude Bowl replica. It's basically just a replica in the sense that it's a left-handed Hindi. But yeah, it's good to see that they're still remembering it somewhat.
Lots of people, lots of drugs, lots of freaks, lots of violence, lots of, you know, sex.
We used to do a lot of, we would party a lot.
We were all under 21 back then too, so you could drink and, you know, do different substances.
We'd take acid and go crazy in the desert.
There's a fire pit in the pool, and people are skating around the fire pit. Like there's flames going.
And bands would be playing, and you'd just see their shadows through the fire.
Sand, it hurt.
And then somebody got in a fight in the swimming pool, and everybody starts yelling, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves, 2 men enter, 1 man leaves.
Gunfire in the background.
Tumbleweeds, people falling on the cactus.
No rules.
Bands playing like above where the people are fighting, and that was like...
Anarchy.
There's a bunch of shitheads, and they're going around in a circle creating a typhoon of dust. Dust would get in the cones, so we'd be playing with blown out speakers and crappy sounding. And, you know, they were having a great time, but it was like, this sounds terrible, we're playing terrible, and these people don't fucking care. And it was like, it was the chaos that they liked. You don't know what could happen. And you're always on the edge of like keeping your keys in your pocket, like, oh fuck, should I get in the car and go? And that was good. That was genuine, you know what I mean? That was where it made it feel more real. Sometimes it was dark, like weird, a lot of drama, people that had to get their anger out in the desert and do their thing, get drunk, throw shit at each other, whatever they needed to do.
Some nights it would be Mexican gang members on LSD with shotguns, and you'd be like, this fucking sucks.
Sometimes the partying became a huge issue, and partying is a nice way to put it because it got pretty self-destructive and pretty crazy, like sick in a way, you know?
I remember one year, probably about 95, I played with Decon at the Nude Bowl.
In the middle of us playing, somebody tapped me on the shoulder and kept pointing behind me, and I didn't know what he was talking about because I was singing at the time. I turned around and there was a fire coming over the hill. And everybody just scattered, got in their cars, tried to get down, you know, as fast as we could.
200 people had to evacuate. We started throwing all the instruments in different cars. I don't know how we got all our stuff back.
One of our friends ended up having to leave his truck there, got stuck in the dirt, and his truck burned.
It totally exploded, burnt up. And then the next morning, the whole scene of cops and everyone that was on the scene were blaming him, like they thought for insurance purposes or something, he burnt his truck. Yeah. They're like, so you're the guy that started the fire. I was like, what are you talking about? There was a huge party. They're like, what? He's like, you mean you didn't know there was a huge party? It was like 600 people and bands and everything. And it's like, they just shows the communication between law enforcement at the time.
What was great about playing in cans and stuff is that the police never knew where it was.
The party would hide behind the dunes low enough down there that you couldn't really see much. You'd see maybe a little glow or some crap, but it wasn't much, you know. And then they got the helicopters, and then they got two, and then within like, by what, you know, the late 90s, that shit was done. You couldn't party anywhere for more than like an hour, hour and a half.
And layers of paint. If you like look and get closer, you can still see layers of paint from all the cool graffiti.
As the time went on, kind of like the scene actually, it started to crumble, and it just became a slab with no walls and just trash, with the hillside burnt, and a car turned over in the roadway.
I think it was a really special place. Can you imagine? Look at this view.
We had a contest back in March, I believe, and it was the first annual Nude Bowl tribute. And a lot of kids showed up. There's a lot of really good kids skating in the contest, and yeah, I'm sure the younger generation knows for sure. All right, here we go. Oh, that's it. Good night for the nude ball.
What the fuck? Let's try to make a club in the desert.
Get away!
Hey, no camera! PA system and keg box, and cold beer on tap, and a pizza oven, and we were just like, what would be the perfect situation for a rock and roll club?
A big development in the scene was when Mario and his cousin Larry Lally opened Rhythm and Brews in India.
Our gourmet chef. There we are. Here I am. What's on the menu tonight? Blood guts. The usual.
So that was even radder than the desert in a lot of ways because it was comfortable and you could play pool.
There was actually a sound system you could hear, and if the wind was blowing 80 miles an hour, your mic stand would stay standing up. You know what I mean? Your cymbals wouldn't blow off the stands. It was good for that. You'd sleep on the couches, get up, clean the place, open up, have another band show up, and Mario would get up and play, and we'd practice there and stuff. It was like a 24-hour thing, and sometimes, like, I remember, I think it was Pygmy Love Circus or something like that, played for me and Mario and Larry, and we had a pitcher of beer, a pizza, and us three sitting there watching the band, and that was it.
Rhythm and Brews was my training ground. I was like 15 at the time. I was probably weird to some people. I was like a rocker with long hair and whatever.
It was weird. That's right.
But at that place, I was like, I fit in. And it was all the time. There'd be weeknights where some awesome band would come in from out of town.
Played just a few parties out in the desert, and then but they'd come to LA to play real shows. You know, we'd only play in front of 40, 50 people, friends back then, and drink beer and, you know, take drugs and whatever.
At that time, this area was so rich in music that Mario was looking for a place to showcase it.
But you had to pay bills and permits and deal with the police. And all that shit ended up shutting us down after a year.
They put undercover cops inside the buildings, and they were just looking for opportunities to arrest underage kids.
How old were you when you were going to Rhythm and Brews?
15.
Were you drinking there?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that didn't help Mario. Minors in his bar drinking.
Acid in the parking lot.
After they lost their license, they got involved in a lawsuit, and all the musicians got together and put on a benefit concert to support Mario, and the scene went dormant for a while.
Really had an identity of its own then. Kyuss was already really kicking ass, and Unsound was doing, you know, huge parties with hundreds of people there.
I think the scenes change every 4 years in high school. Like, you know what I mean? It was like, like you go through high school, that's the bands that are playing, and those people graduate, and then there's a new generation of people making music.
Unsound was like Black Flag, and Kyuss was like Black Sabbath. You know, we were two totally different things, but the same thing.
When Kyuss played with early on, we were like, "Fuck, they're better than us," and which is great because you need that challenge.
We got a little bit of press and stuff, locally the desert newspapers, that was kind of cool. And I remember Flipside interviewed. Oh man, we made it, we're in Flipside, the punk rock Bible.
Unsound is probably the one band that people that would be into desert rock music wouldn't know, but they were one of the best.
We go to LA and they get super wasted and blow it and piss off the people that were supposed to be kissing their ass, and me and Ian would get in a knife fight in the kitchen and Brian Maloney would puke inside their car or whatever the case was. It was just we weren't ready to deal with anything semi-professional.
We couldn't handle the pressure and we fell apart. Unsound died in the early 90s. Unsound lives. Unsound rules. Oh no. See, nobody knows.
When I was 13, I was in a band in Palm Desert called Today. And while I was in that band, Chris Cocker and I decided to start our own band, and we called Cats and Jammer. That would evolve into Kyuss.
Brent had a friend named Josh Homme to play guitar.
We thought we were like a punk band, basically. We thought we were this heavy version of a punk band. Everyone else thought we were heavy metal, you know, which actually bugged the shit out of me for years.
At one point, we had Nick Oliveri, was another friend of ours from school, try out on guitar.
Nick was the one stoner dude that hung out with all us guys that weren't into metal, you know.
But Nick has definitely made up for it in punk rockness since then, hasn't he?
Nick was already known as the loose cannon. He was already getting fucked up before school, you know. He was like 14 years old. And Nick has one of the most infectious laughs of all time.
And then, of course, later he replaces me on bass.
I lost my job, I lost my wife, but I still got a bed.
Why they broke out? I don't know. You ever listen to the Wretch, the first Kyuss thing?
I went out and bought it, and I was like, this is the worst shit I ever heard in my life. And they put out a fucking record.
Yeah, but now you can sell it for a couple $100.
Yeah, but I was like, man, I could put out a record. Like I could, you know, take my band more seriously and want to put out some piece of shit that no one else likes. Fuck yeah.
When we went to record our first record, Brant and I were 16 years old. And we showed up with bass cabinets for guitar cabinets and bass amps for guitar amps. And the engineer was saying that you're gonna have to tune up and you're gonna have to get guitar amps. We can't do this like this.
So is that how Kyuss influenced you?
That's how Kyuss influenced me, yes. But I did start liking them after a couple records after that.
I had no idea on the levels of success Kyuss was reaching. Heard of them playing in Europe and this stoner rock title.
It's weird when people say that Kyuss started stoner rock. Like when I was in Across the River, there were a lot of jam sections, and Kyuss did that too.
I think people associate it with two types of things in desert rock, with kind of heavier, dirgier, and I think there's also this kind of spacious, almost Earthlings vibe.
But the low tuning was a thing.
Part of why we tuned down is to try to sound heavy outside, and also because I couldn't afford a tuner. I thought, this is something no one's doing that would make us different before we even played a song, is that it would just go from there.
They got asked to open for, what was it, Metallica in Australia. I remember that was like, what?
They opened up for Metallica. We're like, oh.
Those guys suck, they sold out. That's how everyone was, I'm sure.
It's funny because the reaction was like, do well, but don't do too well, you know? What I call punk rock guilt. The desert rock scene was so, I'm saying this cautiously, but kind of arrogantly insulated. It didn't want
any attention.
Basically, this was a true underground scene. These people were performing without permits. Since this was really guerrilla style, they didn't want the publicity.
The point was always just to make some music and enjoy playing. And I think we've always been kind of scared of turning it into a business.
If Nirvana didn't break out, you know, punk rock and alternative out to the world, who knows what would happen. I don't know, would Josh Homme be playing with Dave Grohl 20 years later?
Kyuss broke up, Josh went up to Seattle, and that scene kind of broke up, but out of that came Queens of the Stone Age, and you know what happened with Queens of the Stone Age.
Hard to mix art and commerce. It's a tough thing. And if you can do that, you know, and you're brilliant at it, that's awesome.
We went to elementary school together, and I hated him with a passion because our class and his class were competing in every sporting event, and they'd always kick our ass.
You look fucking wonderful.
That dude was always like very supportive of like local bands and shit.
I asked him, hey, could Throw Rag do a Queens of Stone Age tour? And he said, sure. Took us on tour. All I did was ask.
Never smiles above me.
Put this shit on the map for sure, man. It's a success. You know, we wouldn't be talking about the desert, I don't think.
Super kissing on my chin. Little bratty bunker squad kicking at my shins. Ugly duckling, sweetie pies, everybody's friends. Sucking up in whiskey loop, everybody wins. They win! They win! They win!
Everybody wins. I know guys that are really amazing musicians that have worked their asses off all their life. I said, what the fuck? You're going to, how the fuck do you do that? How did that happen that you can go to Europe and play? I'm like, you know, it's a long story, but it started honestly with this band from the desert and I try to explain this whole thing, you know, like started with this band from the desert that got some success and they got a couple good tours and then they got kind of big in Europe, and somehow that ended up in us getting the opportunity to go play in some fucking pizzeria in Latina Italy. And I was like, wow, how? I'm super grateful for that. And to me, that's success. That's huge success, you know.
unusual that a father and son will play in the same band.
Look at Mario and look at her. Both of them play in bands with their sons. I mean, that's pretty bitchin'. When I see that, it makes me wish I would have had a kid 19 years ago.
My son's in another band called Nuclear Youth, which is, early 20s, teenage guys, and I think there's really another scene kind of happening.
They play like parties and stuff, and it's like a punk band playing a party, and like where we live, it's like DJs and like techno music. So punk and metal is still alive in the desert.
And maybe even tonight, at some high school party, some kids' parents are out and there's a rad band in high school. I'm sure it's happening now.
They're still singing about the desert and 7-Elevens and stuff like that, but they're just doing it rah, 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 rah.
They're playing all the time. There's parties out in Coachella, Thermal, at ranches and stuff. And that's really kind of what it was for us back then at that age.
I wish I've been around when all that stuff happened, because it sounds so much better than what goes down now.
Another generation will go through it, and it'll be a good thing.
It didn't matter if you were, what you were on or what you aren't on. It's still a surreal environment.
about going out there in the middle of the desert, playing music for nobody. And there's something kind of romantic about that in a way, you know? And I like that.
Such wide open space that I think a lot of the bands from around have that.
What is unique about the desert was the desert. You know, that's what is different than everywhere else.
Beautiful mountains and lots of palm trees, but there's also elements of the desert that's not so physical, that are just like eternal.
Weird, and it's cool that there's attention paid to it from people that are not from there.
Basically, golfing old people and day trippers.
And Swedish people looking for something special.
If it will fit into what they might think it is, if they think that it's a bunch of bands that are heavy, that sound like Kyuss, then no, that's not what it's about. Or it's never been what it's about. But if they think about it in the beauty of the desert and the purity of the music and the bands that play down there, then I think that is true.
Still looking for, start looking at keeps me up all night. Little darling, she stands by my side. Fortunate to find her, you make me feel alive. Now it's time for you and I. Yeah, baby, you and I. Oh, deep inside my mind. And as the night goes on, I know that you'll decide. Fortune to find him, you make me feel alive. Ooh. Now it's time for you and I. Yeah, baby, you and I. Fortunate to find her, you took up all my time. Now it's time for me to say goodbye. 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 Goodbye.
So there's a saying I've heard from old Indian friends of mine, you have sand in your blood. You know, it goes, Sean, man, you know, your family, my family, man, hey, we got sand in our blood. We're